It's a bittersweet moment.
It's
Knowing that this is the last episode.
It's the beginning of the end.
Knowing that this is the final episode, bro.
Statistics don't lie. Men lie. Women lie. Numbers do not lie.
Don't.
And you know, I told you from the beginning. I think it's like 90% of podcasts don't make it past the 7th episode.
Yeah.
And this is the 7th episode.
And
so
I think we are part of that 90%.
we are.
I think it's just too much.
I think as soon as this podcast is done, the life that we've been working so hard to change for the good is going to change for the bad. I think I'm going to go to Crumble and then Chipotle and then probably end up getting a Stromboli. I'm going to add the 12 pounds I've lost right back on in one day, 24 hours. I'm going to never go to the gym ever again and live a life as a hermit.
A meaningless life. No purpose.
Just being a
no
hermit.
Intention.
I got the legs out today.
Yeah, bro, it's getting hot. Too hot.
Yeah. Dude, the AC thing. So I think I was telling you about this a little bit, but I'll enlighten the viewers. I am essentially a human version of Lulu, our husky. And I get hot very, very, very easily. And Brayden gets cold very, very easily. And obviously Lulu's a husky, so she likes it cold. We've been dealing with the stupid AC in our apartment. First time they came through, I think I was telling you, they left a note. And it literally said, AC, we were here. That's it. That's it. Just AC, we were here. Nothing. No like, oh, we found this was wrong. This was nothing. And nothing changed. So that same night, because it was really hot in here and the air was not blowing, but we heard the AC like unit moving, I literally set another request in and heard nothing back. And then I had to call the office and they put in like our urgent request. They came today. They said they fixed it. And then hot air was blowing out of the AC. So then they came back again. And finally, I can enjoy a little bit of coolness inside the apartment. Because I literally wake up in the middle of the night sweating. And that's got to be a top 10 worst feeling. Like, I don't, do you ever wake up sweating? It's like the nastiest thing.
Every time after a nap in the middle of the day, I wake up confused and sweating. I don't really know why.
Dude, the middle of the day. Why is it the middle of the day?
No, yeah, but I'm always sweating and confused and just wondering what's been going on. But I would agree with you. It's not a good feeling. But I mean, the weather's changing really fast. Before we know it, the degrees are going to be 90, 100. Yeah. And I don't know if I'm ready for that, but you know.
You know, we're East Coast. For the people on the podcast, we're East Coast. Yeah. And we get all 4 seasons. And it was sitting in winter for a while. And then I went through that weird time where it was like warm, then cold and raining, and then raining like a lot. But finally, I like spring. I'm like a spring and fall guy because I like the like 60s, 70s, or even like really like 50s where it's nice and cold and you can throw like a cool little fit on. But
yeah,
I'm not a winter guy. I'm not a summer guy. I like it in the middle. But sorry, man. We get all 4 seasons. But
this winter was interesting because I feel like for the first time, I really did my best to focus, even in the times where I didn't feel like I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
This winter for me, I called it a dark winter because I essentially tried to shut off all distractions and really focus on still maintaining my discipline, following my path, even though it's the easiest time of the year to get thrown off and to stray away into comfort and all those things. And I do want to say, like, I guess I am a little proud of myself just because even though it wasn't perfect, I did make a lot of progress through the winter up until now where we are. And it's cool. I'm excited now because now I feel like these next couple months are going to be so easy. I think we were talking about it last episode where it just feels like right now, like we're in flow state, where even the things that should be the hardest things to maintain in our discipline, they just feel like they're easy. And I'm excited because now I feel like we're really going to see what we're capable of.
We've never talked about this like personally, but have you ever dealt with seasonal depression?
For sure.
Because that was something that I always dealt with, probably from like age, like I feel like I was kind of in this good coast of like always a good headspace up until I graduated high school. And then it kind of set in that it's like, oh, it's time to be an adult. You know what I mean? But like, I feel like 18 through like 22 years old, I really dealt with that, like maybe like 4 or 5 years in a row. And I didn't really know, like at first I didn't correlate it to winter, but like there's not much to do, you know, it's cold. So you're not going to go outside. Like you have the summer where you can go to the beach. You have like spring where you can go out and play sports. You can go like, you know what I mean? It's not like that crap weather, but it definitely speaks on something. I feel like I haven't gotten seasonal depression too bad since I started going to the gym because I kind of take it how you just said you take it. It's like you kind of put your head down and you're like, okay, cool. There's not much like to do in terms of like, oh, let's go with our friends to the beach. So let's go with our friends and go mini golfing or whatever because it's cold. You know what I mean? All that stuff shut down. You can't go to the pool. You can't go to the beach because we're obviously East Coast, so it's cold. So it's one of those things that every winter, it's kind of like this bittersweet thing because the weather kind of sucks. And I have to take Lou out while it's raining or it's freezing and it's snowing. But in terms of like getting our heads right, I always like it in a certain sense because you can put your head down at work.
Yeah.
But I always feel like that's also an excuse because you should still be able to do that in all of the seasons. I feel like I've always dealt with that where it's like, I'm an extremist. You know, you're an extremist as well. And I like to use certain situations to be like, okay, cool, winter, it's time to lock in. Like, I'm not doing nothing. I'm about to bulk up. I don't have to put my shirt on or take my shirt off and stuff like that. But I don't really know, man.
Yeah. No, I think seasonal depression is exactly what I was trying to explain, just right now. What I was essentially trying to not do in this entire winter. That was my pure focus. Do not fall into seasonal depression because it's so easy, especially just, I guess, now me being single, having no girlfriend, I literally have no one to cuddle with. And so it's just me at night every single day, just like crying. Crying. And so it was hard, bro. It was hard to just, I guess, know that I could fall into the comfort of everything, like everything that could possibly comfort me. And I just chose not to. I chose to, I was in such a, I guess, mindset that I'm going to do everything to not let myself fall into it, that this one day I went out running when it was snowing. And basically, first 30 seconds in, immediately just bust my ass. Immediately, bro. Like, just fall backwards. I'm so glad I didn't hit my head, but I was like, okay, well, what can I do? Like, I either go home or I keep going. And so I keep going. And I don't know if maybe I was just trying to prove a point to myself too much, but I kept going. You know, it was a cool, chill little run. But then I fell again, and that time I cracked my phone.
I would have been pissed.
My phone, as you can see right here, that's the crack that came from it.
That's the actual screen or the screen protector?
This is the real screen, which is my fault because I should have had a screen protector. But
you know about how I cracked my phone, right?
How?
So I got the brand new iPhone, not this past one from September, but the year before. But it was brand new when I got it, right? And within the first week, I flipped a golf cart. Like, I was golfing.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that.
I'm human. I was boozing a little bit.
Yeah.
And we were going to this hole, and it was like a U-turn with the golf cart. And I didn't realize there was like this lip up on the path. So it was like this U-turn area, but there was a lip up. So I thought it went straight grass, and it didn't. And I realized it last second. So I tried to hit the brake and turn, and I cut the cart too tight. Bro, we flipped the cart. I literally flew out of the cart, messed my foot up, and brand new phone. Like, it was brand new to the point where my case was in the mail on the way, that new, like within a week. Luckily, it was like on the tops and bottoms and not in the middle, so I never got it fixed or anything. But yeah, that's just kind of a testimony to the cracked phone luck that I have. I don't think I've ever had a phone, like an iPhone that I've gotten that's been in pristine condition the whole time.
Yeah. And to bring it back to what I was saying, when I cracked my phone, it was a price to pay, you know, for a mentality that I really have been trying to, I guess, ingrain in myself. And it's what we learned through David Goggins' book, you know, and Everything Can't Hurt Me, Never Finished, which is, to me personally, favorite book of all time. Favorite two sets of book of all time. I feel like nothing really changed my perspective on just making excuses more than that book did, more than his life did. And it's been crazy just feeling like how a book can really transform your life.
Those set of books make you realize that no matter the pity party we throw for ourselves, it ain't nothing compared to what someone else is going through. You know, you got people who have a house and a car and food and they're complaining about being broke. And then you have someone who's homeless who would kill for any of those things. They would just kill for a beater car to sleep in. And it kind of gives you that perspective throughout the entire book of how difficult things can really get and how everything is the perspective that we pay it in our mind. You know what I mean? And speaking of that book, we were doing some crazy stuff the first time. Like you were going out running with your torn ACL. I was waking up at 4:30 to go on runs. It was dark outside. I was literally running down the pitch black highway. Yeah. Because like our old apartment was like right on that long highway strip that you and I ran that one time. You remember we ran like 4.5 miles just cause that one time?
Yeah.
We were together and we just like got into that like dog mentality. I was like, I'm not quitting. Like we're going to do 2 laps of this one that we thought we were going to do one. That was crazy. But, so Braden, obviously we talk about it all the time. We'll keep updating it. Does 75 hard. And I made her this deal. I said, every time you finish your book, because you have to read 10 pages of a nonfiction book every day, every time you finish a book, I'll buy you a new one as like a, stepping stone towards like, you're doing better. You know what I mean? You're progressing and things like that. So she finished her first book and she was trying to decide for a few days what book to get. And I've been telling her over and over, like, you should listen to this David Goggins audiobook that I have. And she thought that I was talking about strictly a podcast. And yesterday, she's like, hey, can we go in the store and get the book? And I was like, yeah, we can go and get the book. And tell me why. She looks at me with this little cute smirk and goes, I want to get the David Goggins book. And I was like, man, oh, baby, you're about to be a dog.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening, check that book out.
Yeah.
Because it really changes. It really changes everything. It's all in your perspective. I always did those self-help books where it was like, affirmations and do this, bro. There's no better way to improve yourself by going through tough times and coming out on the winning side of that. Wanting to sleep in and be comfortable, but forcing yourself to get up and work out, or forcing yourself to get up and do something that you typically wouldn't do. That's the best way to improve in life. It's not by, speaking positively to yourself. Obviously, there's a place for all of that, and there's a place to speak positively to yourself and affirm things and to manifest things. But at the end of the day, if you don't actually work on the things that you need to get done, you're never going to get what you want.
Yeah, and at some point you face that demon face to face in that uncomfortability, in that suffering, and those affirmations don't help you at all. That I'm good enough, I'm strong does not help you when you're literally suffering and trying to change your life and trying to change your mentality, your identity. None of that helps. You have to, I feel like, really, really believe that you can get through anything. And you have to have the mentality of, I will find a way no matter what. I will get this done no matter what. And that's what I feel like that book taught me, that it's things that we know. It's things that we know. We know that we can do anything we set our mind to, but these excuses come up. And you know what I found about excuses? I feel like, at least I'm not a neuroscientist, so this is going to sound really dumb, but I found this from personal experience. When I was on my journey, my first beginning journey to just lose weight and really change my life for good, not change it and then go back like it had been for a long time, I used to get on the Stairmaster. And what I found was that we have this voice inside of us, which everyone has, right? However, once I started to get uncomfortable, I would notice how I no longer had one voice. I had 2 voices speaking to me. One of them was the voice that I knew was me, which was the one who wanted to get better. The one who was like, come on, you got this, keep going. You're stronger than you think. But then there was another voice which I believe is just your body, your brain creating that voice that wants you to quit when things get hard, because your body and your mind does not like you being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I would notice when I would get to that point of discomfort, of quote unquote, what I like to call just suffering, I would notice that my brain would create this voice and would tell me things like, you've already been here long enough. You've already done enough. You've suffered enough. This is good. You don't have to keep going. It hurts really, really bad. You can stop. But I would kind of, and the way I was able to really notice this is I would get on the stairs without music. So I would just listen to my thoughts every single day. Listen to, what is this voice telling me? And I feel like when you actually do those types of things, when you get on the stairs without music or run without music, you get to figure out the real you, because that you is going to come out in that place of suffering, and you're going to see how fast you want to quit. Now, what happened was I started to notice the less I listened to that voice, the less it would speak to me. And so the other voice that I knew was me, the one that wanted to get better, the one that deep down knew that he could be stronger, that voice started to just get louder, and that other voice just completely shut down eventually, to the point where it wasn't trying to talk to me anymore. And I knew that it wasn't me. And again, I'm not a neuroscientist, so there has to be some sort of science behind it, but this is what I found through personal experience, that no one could have taught me that. I had to learn from being in that place of suffering.
Yeah, those inner thoughts, like putting yourself through physical and emotional pain sounds great until you go and do it.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a battle with you versus you. You can say like, oh, I'm going to go do 30 minutes on the Stairmaster. And you're like, oh, hell yeah. Like, I'm going to get it done. And then you go on the Stairmaster and you're like,
immediately
3 minutes in, your quads are burning. You're like, dang, son, like I'm 10% done. Like, and then it's like you said, you'll get 20 minutes in. You'll be like, oh, like, you know, like 20 minutes is cool. Like, at least I got on.
Yeah.
And you try and cope with those thoughts. And that's where, going back to the book, that's where it really teaches you to fight that extra thoughts. I used to do it all the time. You know, I read that book and I started going on runs, and I hated running. Like, I still hate running. And I liked it a little bit more, and I like it a little bit more now because of the mental battle that you were just talking about. But in terms of running, if I never had to go a run in my life, like, I'd be totally fine. It's not like I'm like, oh, I really want to go on a run. If I did, I'd run every day. You know what I mean? But coping with those thoughts and battling through that is one of the most difficult things. I remember, bro, like a psychopath, when I used to get up at 4:30 a.m. And you know, we would send each other these audios every day. I'd get up at 4:30 a.m. and, bro, I would literally yell out loud because everyone's asleep. I was like, no one's doing this. No one's getting up early. I was like, I don't care what my other thoughts say. Like, I'm pushing through this. Like, this is easy. I'm sitting there hurting, bro. Feet blistered up. Like, I remember my first run. I was like, okay, I'm going to run every day at 4:30 for 5 days straight. And then I'll take the weekend, like Saturday morning off, and I'll go like midday. And I would wake up at 4:30 and I'd go. And I blistered up after the first day. And I just remember hearing David Goggins like, oh yeah, who's going to carry the boats? Bro, I used to scream that. I'm like, who's going to carry the boats and the logs? And like, it sounds like a sicko. There's probably some people hearing me like, yo, what the hell? Thought there was a little like bush Wookie out in the backyard, like about to attack them like I was Bigfoot or something, screaming down the middle of a highway at 4:30 a.m. pitch black. But battling through those thoughts, man, it's really something that it's sick, because as soon as you're done that run, like, you could stop midway and you'll feel yourself being disappointed. You're like, damn, I said I was going to do 2 miles and I stopped at 1. Or I said I was going to do 5 miles and I stopped at 3. Or I said I was going to go on a run today and I didn't even go on that damn run. But if you do that and you say, I'm going to go run 2 miles, and you run 2 miles, bro, the feeling that you get when you complete that and you're like, okay, I was a man of my word. I did what I wanted. I pushed through the pain and I pushed through that mental drag of wanting to quit. That's next to none the best feeling in terms of our physical health. Getting through the things that we don't want to do and pushing ourselves. You want to lose weight? Go to the gym. You hate going to the gym? Go to the gym anyway. Because that's where the mental growth comes. And the mental growth, I firmly believe, will stem to the physical growth. If you want to lose weight and you're overweight, that's not good enough to be the reason why you lose weight. If you want to be smarter or become a master of a craft, just because in your head you think, oh, I would love to master this, that's not enough to go out and master it. It's in the acts of doing it and growing through it and the discipline of doing the things you don't want to do, but still doing them, where you become masters of your mind, masters of your craft, where you start to lose that weight or start to learn the thing that you want to learn.
Right. And I'm pretty sure I've already said this in another podcast, in one of the early ones that we had, but what you just mentioned about following through with your word, I believe is the root of confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
And if anyone has the question of how do I become more confident? How do I build confidence? If I have none, I used to talk to myself and say, I am confident, but that will only take you so far. I feel like real, genuine confidence comes from within, when your subconscious mind sees you constantly be a person who follows through with what they say. If you tell yourself, I'm going to do this, you better get that done, because someone's always watching.
Yeah.
And that someone is you from deep down.
Yeah.
So what I learned was that when I started to actually follow through with those things, that person inside of me started to believe me more. You know, my inner thought started to believe me when I said, you know what, I'm going to get this done, or I am this type of person. I could believe myself finally, because I had proof that I am a person who follows through with what they say. And bro, that is I feel like my ultimate goal right now. I want to be the type of person where when I say something, not only do I not doubt myself, no one else doubts me, because they know that every time I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And that's my goal as a person, just being impeccable with my word and being a man of my word. And this can even go into marriage and into relationships. When I give my vows, telling my wife, I'm going to love you, protect you, I'm going to be there for you till the end. I want her to look into my eyes and just believe this man is a man of his word. He will do exactly what he's saying, and I believe him with all of my heart. And that only comes, I feel like, when you live in that way, when that's your standard of living every single day.
Yeah. Let's so for this episode, I want to give our audience a little insight on us, because we talk a lot about mental growth. We talk a lot about physical and all of these things, and our faith and our beliefs and everything like that. I feel like we haven't had an episode where the majority of the time we just kind of talk about us and what we would love out of life and the things that we see fulfillment in, and just like a million different things, like more on the personal side, but not necessarily as deep.
Okay.
So I wanted to talk about kind of like the vision that we're seeing. I feel like as I grow older, I'm almost 26, and as I grow older, I kind of get to shift through and see the things that matter more in life. And it's kind of cool because, again, we are very similar, and a lot of the same ideals and what we want out of life, that's what matters to almost both of us, but as our own individual person.
For sure.
So even just like from a small highlight, what would you, if you could give an insight of what your ideal life, and we know that God has a plan for us, and if this isn't what's right for us, it won't happen. But where do you see yourself in terms of like kids and wife and like 5-10 years down the line? Like, that's kind of a big question. It's kind of open, but it's also kind of cool to hear about that, because I feel like you and I, even off the podcast, don't talk too much about like what we're looking for in that. So like, just I'm curious, just as your friend.
Well, primarily, I would say my biggest goal is to have a family. You know, besides all my personal goals of self-improvement, making music, and getting closer to God, my big goal, I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older or maybe my prefrontal cortex has fully developed. I just want to be a dad. Like, I have the biggest just drive inside of me to have a little kid. But I feel like the real reason deep down is because I grew up in such a way where I had no confidence in myself. And so I had to build that through this way of thinking, through everything that we're talking about. I always think to myself, man, where would I be if I believed in myself all along? If I was a little kid and my father would have told me, you know what, you see that person being successful, you can be exactly like that if you work hard, if you work harder than everyone else. You see that person who's really good at playing soccer, yes, they may have talent, but give yourself some time, you will be better than them if you work harder than them. And so I guess I just want to have a kid because I want to have I want to be able to pass down that mentality, those values that I have, that I live my life with now. And it would feel amazing, honestly, to be able to do that. So I want to do that. And obviously with my wife, that would be the most ideal position. Now, this is where people start to think I'm crazy, because I don't want just one kid. I would love to have a lot of kids, probably like 8, 9, 10, and just have an army and just have potentially a full soccer team full of kids, of boys, girls. We can do both.
Yeah.
But the real reason I feel like, again, if we're getting deep, is because I grew up only really knowing me, my parents, and my 3 sisters, which that was my family growing up. That's all that I knew. If you asked me, do you have cousins? Do you have aunts or uncles? I would have said, I mean, yeah, I do, but I don't really know them. Right now, it's just me, my sisters. And so growing up, I wouldn't say envy, but I always craved to have that type of Home Alone family where everything's just chaos and everyone's just in their different, in their different lives. So maybe out of not having that, I've wanted to do that. However, my biggest goal, my biggest desire deep down is truthfully to just have a partner where each and every day we're striving to get better.
Yeah.
It's amazing to have love, and it's amazing to be in a relationship and go on these cute dates. But I feel like what my heart wants is someone who also sees the things that I see as important to them.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, to me, the most valuable thing I can find in a partner is someone who just progressively, I don't want to say obsessed, because people think obsession is a bad thing, but truthfully, obsessed with getting better and obsessed with becoming just growing as a person. And to me, if I have that, bro, I'll literally be happy forever. So
yeah, I can relate on that. I think that's why us as friends work so well, because with what you were saying about the family, I've always craved that too. I have a big family, which is crazy. And I see them every once in a while for like holidays and stuff. But I was always the youngest cousin, and like no one would talk to me, like ever. Like, so I would just like, I'd rather hang out with my friends or buddies or just be at home by myself than go to these family gatherings because I wasn't tight with them. And I feel like even in the just under 2 years that Brayden and I have been dating, I've grown closer with her extended family and her cousins and aunts and uncles and things like that than I have with my own. And I've been around them my entire life. So I think I agree with you in terms of that's like something that I'm looking forward to. You know, I want to be, and Brayden and I both have said this for our future, we want to be the people who host. Every single time, like I want everyone to come to us. That way we can have huge get-togethers. I want everyone to know each other. I want a bunch of kids running around, messing around. I want to do stuff for them. And I want our families, obviously you and your future wife, me and Brayden and our kids to be family as well, even though that wouldn't be blood family. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because that to me is like the coolest thing. And we've both never had that. You know, I have cousins and aunts and uncles. And like, I even talked about this in terms of whenever Brayden and I get married, like most of them won't be invited to my wedding because I'm just not close with them. And I'm not someone who feels like out of obligation to blood that they have to be around. It's just not how that is. If they never treated me like family, they're not family. You know what I mean? And, you know, I have my 2 grandmoms who are cool. But yeah, that's something I also crave is just that big family. I want a nice house to where I can have everyone over, you know what I mean? And that's like something that I crave is just like that loving environment and having an extended family. Brayden and I always said for me, like 3 kids would be awesome. 2 boys and a girl. I always wish I had a brother, not necessarily an older brother. And even going to what you said, as a father would be so amazing because I feel like neither of us ever truly had like mentorship in terms of growing up and learning how to mature properly as men, learning how to just become a better version of ourselves, you know, mentally and getting through those humps. We had to learn through really low moments ourselves. And obviously we've helped each other, but at the same time, we're also learning together. So it's not like everything we go through, the other one has the answer to or knows how to build us up. And that's something I definitely am excited for in terms of whenever I do have kids is to be able to, like you said, build them up, allow them to be sharp, allow them to know that things are so much more amazing and brighter than it seems like. And you can have the proper perspective to learn and have that confidence in yourself. Because I agree with what you said. And you kind of opened my eyes to it because I always associated my growth and confidence as when I went to the gym. Because I was the same way. I had absolutely no confidence. Never, like I'm talking, bro, never. Like not even when I first was in IML and we were mentoring people, like I had zero confidence. I had no confidence in the way I spoke, no confidence in my thinking ability in my brain, no confidence in the way I looked, nothing. Like I had a buzz cut, glasses. I felt like I was ugly, like couldn't speak to people, like it was bad. And I was constantly, I mean, I don't know if you were around as early as this when we were doing this business, but like my go-to was self-deprecation. I'd make fun of myself because in my head, I'm like, if I make fun of myself, what was someone else going to make fun of me? They can't because I just made fun of myself. So typically people make fun of you in a harming terms, but if I'm the one harming myself and talking down on myself, then what are they going to do? You know what I mean? And it came from a place of just insecurity. I wasn't confident in myself. But when I started going to the gym, I started to grow in confidence. And I always thought it was like, oh, I'm going to the gym, so physically I'm starting to look better. But what I realized is I was being a man of my word. I was doing the things that I always knew deep down I wanted to accomplish, and I started doing that, and I was disciplined with them. And that's where my confidence grew. And I don't think I was ever able to put it into words or understand that until what you just said. So thank you for that. Because like, again, confidence is something I always lacked. Like I just remember like anytime I think of school, I think of like people kind of picking fun at me or I don't want to say bullying because like, but I was always the person who people could easily like target to like make fun of, even if they were in my same like friend group or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like quickly flame me real quick or like not invite me to things because I was in the group, but I wasn't in the group. And I never went to parties and I never did anything. People would just kind of like poke fun and I would sit by myself and it would be at the point where in school, like if I didn't show up it wouldn't be noticeable.
Right.
And like, that's how I never wanted to be, but I was quiet, and it wasn't other people necessarily doing it. It was like me doing it to myself, to where like, I just wasn't who I knew I deeply was down in my spirit. And it was kind of cool that you said that, because that kind of opened something in my mind that will help me teach my future kids. It's like, your confidence stems from doing the things that you want to do and accomplish them, and being proud of what you did. Right. Not having an ego proud, like not being too prideful to like close off to anything, but like, my kid wants to go to the gym, I'm going to teach him how important the discipline is to go to the gym. And then he'll have confidence from understanding that he's doing what he's setting his mind to do. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited to have kids. In terms of where I live too, for our families, and I'd love to hear this because we've talked about this briefly. I want to be around family, the small family that I do have. For example, like, and we'll talk about this after we wrap up the family talk, but we talked about sending it to Texas or just a different state just to send it and try it. Too many people are scared of that. Like, oh, like I'm comfortable here. I have family here. I do this here. Braden and I have talked about it. You and I talked about it before she was even in my life. It's one of those, hey, I'm young. We don't have kids. We don't have too much responsibilities besides our bills. Let's send it somewhere, enjoy something in life, and do that. So if for the next years we try doing that, that will be something that's really cool. But when we have kids, I want to be around family. That's very important to me, that my children grow up around their grandparents. I love my mom, my dad, my stepmom to death. I love my sister's kids to death. I love the little family that I do have. And it's important to me because I don't want my family to grow up without their family, because that's how I've always felt. And Braden and I's family is already a little bit apart. They're like 2 hours away. But I feel like it would be just that much more difficult if we lived somewhere that wasn't easily accessible to visit our family, because we barely get to see them as is now. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah. So like, where are you with that? Because I think we talked about that, and you said like it's not a necessity, but obviously it's nice to have family around.
I would say it's, to be honest with you, it's not as important to me. But here's the reason why. I've seen my nephew grow up, and around my family, everyone has different beliefs about how a child should be raised. My beliefs are very extreme, as you know.
I agree.
But, but you know, not to say any is right or wrong. However, what I'm saying is, I've seen my nephew now grow up, and I've seen him just become a specific type of way because he is allowed to act this specific way by, you know, his grandma, by his grandpa. Some parts of my sister's family allow him to be, just do whatever he wants. And so he's going in that route. When he's with us, a lot of the times, you know, he has to eat healthier. He has to focus on learning. And so he doesn't even want to come sometimes. So I feel like for me, it's very important to make sure that the things that my child is learning is coming from a good place, and from a place of not just what feels good in the moment. Because that's how I live. I don't want just things to make me feel good right now. I want to do what's hard right now so that we can live a good life eventually and fall in love with the things that are hard. So to me, it's more important for me and my wife to have those thoughts, those belief systems, and put them into our child. And when we can see our family, that'll be great. I'm not saying, you know, I never want to see them, but I would say limiting the access to even my children, just because of how powerful it is when you teach someone to think a certain way. And when you're teaching kids, just, this is allowed, this is fine, this is what you should do. And so to me, that's very important.
I never even thought about it like that. And now you have me about to send it across the country and never come back with my kids and Braden and start our own little thing.
And real quick, before you get into that, because you just reminded me, the reason we want to do this trip, like you said, is because we're young, we don't have as many responsibilities, and we can. And I really, really urge anyone who's, not just us, anyone who has that opportunity to travel or to send it to another place and just get uncomfortable, to really do it. But not only that, if you want to start a business, if you want to start making music, if you want to just take a chance on yourself, then do it. Especially if you're young. And right now we're at the age where we can afford to, like we talk all the time, we can afford to mess up for the next 10 years of our life and still have a lot of time to focus on. And maybe, you know, if we want to go the corporate route, if nothing worked for whatever reason, we can do that. We can get a job. But for right now, we need to take risks, and we need to do the things that can potentially set us up for the family.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, you see it in Braden and I, and it's very minimal now because we sent it to an apartment because she got a job somewhere and we tried it and she didn't like the job and it was a corporate job. You know what I mean? It was a close family friend of hers. She got hired and she just didn't like the job. And she took that leap of faith and she quit. She could have been the average person who got stuck in that and felt bad to quit because she was friends with the owner and stuff like that. And it was like, no, like she wasn't happy there. Take that leap of faith. We're too young. There's not a good time to ever settle on something that's not going to make you happy.
Right.
Because we have one life. And why would you want to constantly spend that one life doing things that don't make you happy? That's like, why would you want to do that? You know what I mean?
And that's a good point, real quick. That's a good point what you just said, because she sent it on a leap of faith.
Yeah.
She thought, and you guys thought that, this could have potentially been a much more positive outcome. And it just wasn't, for a lot of reasons, not just a job, but for a lot of reasons which we've talked about. However, that's not going to stop you guys from now taking another leap of faith into another place, which now you're here and you're obviously a lot more comfortable. But just in general, just because something didn't go the way that we thought, the way that we planned, it doesn't mean that we should ever stop taking these leaps of faith right now.
Yeah, like going with the punches, I feel like is a specialty of mine.
Yeah.
And it's not like I take them and then roll with it, but like, again, what's the worst?
What else can you do?
We go to Texas, sign a year lease, hate it, come back in a year. What?
Yeah.
Now I'm 27 and like still 27. You know what I mean? Like no kids, nothing. Like
we're homeless in Texas. At least we have a story.
Yeah,
now
exactly.
We can say we're homeless again.
We'll start walking back. We'll just like have David Goggins on repeat and we'll just be like, all right, we're going to run from Texas to Delaware. We'll come back to the family. And the family was like, you know what I mean? Like think about that. Like if I ever got to the point financially where I was beat, like I know my mom would let me stay with her. I know my dad would let me stay with him. So like what is there to fear from taking that leap of faith? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's I feel like people are living in a constant state of just negative thinking.
Yeah.
Everything that they think of, they try to find these problems. Like we just said this, we're not even thinking about how are we going to pay the rent. I would have to quit my job, which I love so much. So, but I'm not even thinking of that. I'm in my mind, I think, oh, I'll find something else. Oh, things are going to, I feel like our mentality is so delusional in a way, but in a way, all we're doing is just focused on finding solutions. If there is a problem, which there will be, and it's not like we're blocking out our problem and saying, oh, everything is going to be smooth sailing. We're set to sail in any weather. We've taught ourselves how to do that. And we've taught ourselves that when there is a problem, there is always a solution. So I feel like for us, this sounds like a normal talk, but other people are now, their anxiety is all the way up. They're like, how would you do it? Where would you find this? How would you do that? We'll figure it out. You know?
Dude, that's what happened when I moved to the Georgetown apartment with Braden. She's like, hey, look, I got some savings. I have enough to move us in and pay the down deposit and first month's rent, but I'm going to need help after that. And I hadn't worked a job in like 4 years. I was self-employed doing network marketing and affiliate marketing and trading and things like that. And I was like, you know what? Like, let's do it. She was like, I can afford to move us in, but we have to work together once we get there. And I had absolutely no plan. And it was stressful. But then I found my delivery job that pays the most that I've ever made in my life in terms of like an actual physical job. And it worked out. And luckily I can do that essentially anywhere that has these stores. So now we were able to move here. And it's about rolling with those punches. And the Georgetown, for me at least, I can only speak on myself, it was very dark. I had a very dark time there, but I also, God delivers us in suffering. And that was one thing I realized. I always pray to God. I'm like, God, help me get through this. Help me get through this. And not realizing that the suffering and the pain and the mental anguish that I was going through, I was being delivered in that, not from that. He didn't pull me from that. He taught me so much about myself, about the man who I want to be in the house, about having to provide, having to step up, dealing with tough thoughts while a million other things are going through my head. And I also proved to myself that I could push through those low moments, do better, and get myself out of that through his will, as well as through the works that I can display. So that gave me the confidence to send it wherever. And I remember Braden and I had a conversation, and this rubbed her the wrong way when we first talked about it. Was like, I got pretty comfortable when we moved back here because I was closer to my family. And in my head, I'm like, oh, like I like being closer to my family. This is cool. And this is like 6 months ago at this point. And I got almost comfortable to the point where it was like, oh, I would never move away because I like being close to my family. And I got away from what excited me in the first place was sending it somewhere, trying it out. And then when it comes to having a family, being closer to where they can see their grandfather and grandmother and things like that. So I'm excited. I'm excited because we have no idea where we're going to try and look. Braden and I kind of talked about like trying some places and like almost like taking or almost a road trip and trying something for like a week and going here and there because we don't move for a year. So having this in our head that we're going to try a different place is exciting because it's not in a rush. Mm-hmm. You know, we did better this time. The first apartment we moved into was very like rushed. It was like, okay, like she got this job. We got to move as soon as possible. Boom. We moved in as soon as possible before we even had the means to do so, but we made it work. And this time it was like 3 months ahead of time, 4 months ahead of time. We're like, you know what? Like, let's try a new area. This time it excites me because we can really take the time to decide where we want to go and what we want to do and send it. Because again, the worst comes to worst. So we don't like it. Come back, try a new place. Like, but imagine what if it does work? Like, that's what people forget. They get so fearful of what if it doesn't work that they don't realize what if it does work?
What if it does?
What if I find the most beautiful place? What if I'm a small town guy, but I've never experienced a smaller town and I never would if I don't try it? Mm-hmm. What if I found the coolest business opportunity in a place that I was scared to go to, so I never went to it and I never got that business opportunity? There's just so many different things that you learn through trying new things and getting out of your environment and getting out of your hometown. That's another thing. Like, getting out of your hometown is the most important thing I would say ever. When I moved from northern Delaware near Wilmington in the city and being around the people I was around to southern Delaware, that wasn't really my space. That's not really me, but it got me out of my hometown and made me learn who I am, learn who I want to be and mature. So when you get out of the comfortable and your habit of where you are from, you have to learn a new area. You have to learn new people. You have to go talk to new people and meet new people and see like, oh, the people are nice. The people aren't nice. Like it's such a cool opportunity to try somewhere new. People are just so quick to feel like they have to get their life together because most of our parents and grandparents and family forces that on us. You know, you ever go to a family get together and people start asking like, oh, what you doing? What you working? You doing this? You doing that? Like making good money? Oh, you should go to the military. You should do this. Like everyone wants to have their 2 cents when again, no one knows what we're working on and the dreams we have and how hard we're willing to work on that besides ourselves. So like you said, man, like it's such a cool opportunity to just go for it. Again, like sign a year lease, try it to rent a home, a huge home, whatever. Sign a year lease, don't like it, come back. Like it's a year out of your life. And all this here, materialistic things don't matter as much as we put the weight on them now.
Never.
So why not?
Yeah. Send it for sure. And I want to point out one thing before we take it to a different place, because this, I feel like what thought came to my mind is really important. But first, before that, I want to point out that you are asking the right questions. What if it does work is the most important question I feel like you can ask, and just thinking on that positive spectrum compared to everything else, which when you give the problem to two different people, like what can happen if you take a leap of faith? A lot of people are going to think very different ways. But for example, us, we're very much on the spectrum of what if it does work? What if I actually can make this happen? What if maybe it doesn't work completely, but I make some progress? The other people are also asking the same questions, but just in a very different way. What if it doesn't work? What if everything that I think is going to go right goes wrong? What if I get betrayed? What if I get backstabbed by this person? What if I can't pay my rent? And it's just a way, it's a perspective. It's a way you choose to think that way. It's not like you were just born this positive person. You're choosing to think this way because you have a choice at the end of the day. And that's, I feel like, part of free will is we have the ability to choose what we're going to believe and what we're not. Now, on the topic of taking a leap of faith, I feel like in my heart, I just felt, when it came to the Bible, when it came to Abraham, God gave him a word and said, go to this place.
Yeah.
But he never told him how he was going to do everything that he promised him he was going to do. It's the same thing with Moses. He said, Moses, go to the Pharaoh, tell him that I need my people back, basically.
Yeah.
He never told Moses how things were going to happen. He just gave him a place. He gave him something to do, and Moses had to figure it out. In the same way where a lot of us, want these things out of life, or we have this word that God has promised us, hey, I'm going to do this with you, but you don't know how it's going to happen. And that's where that leap of faith comes through. But also that's where that faith in God comes in, because he will not follow you until you take the first step. It's almost like God builds the path in front of you. Every step that you take, a new piece of path is revealed.
Yeah.
But you will never get there until you really have faith and say, you know what, God, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent. I don't know how I'm going to make this happen, but I trust you. And if it doesn't go the way that I thought that it was going to go, I still trust you, because I know that you love me and I know that you have a plan for me. And if you gave me this word, I will die on it knowing that it will happen, and I will do everything that I can to make sure that it does. But that faith, bro, that faith is really what a lot of the times is tested with that first opportunity of, are you willing to do something that to other people sounds insane? It sounds crazy. But to God, nothing is crazy.
It says in the scripture that God has plans for us to prosper, not to harm us. And that alone, to me, is enough to excite me to take a leap of faith, because he's our Father. He created all of this. So if he has plans for us to prosper and not to be harmed, what do I have to worry about? You know what I mean? Like, right. Yeah, obviously in the day-to-day, there's going to be stressful days and stressful things that come up, and you get overstimulated and you have a bunch of stuff, or we're going to eventually get to that age very soon where people who we love get older and who might pass away. And there's going to be things that come our way in our life that cause struggle or worry or anything like that. But the best part is he has plans for us to prosper. Like, I don't know, I'm sure you agree, Heck, but when I hear that, it excites me. He has plans for me to prosper. So why would I ever be worried about taking a leap of faith when I know that Father God, the creator of this universe, has plans for me to prosper and grow and become the best version of myself? So why not try somewhere else? Because I feel like God could almost have plans for us to grow into this person that we couldn't even imagine. It's so much better and so much more and so much sharper than we ever could even imagine. But I feel like if we sell ourselves short and we don't believe in ourselves, that this man, Heck, was changing the battery, or not the battery. Yeah, he was changing the battery in his camera, and he grabbed his mic.
Well, now we're recording, so they're gonna see a little bit.
This popped off and went flying. But again, just to finish that thing, we'll just leave that in there because that was funny.
Yeah, that's cool.
He has plans for us to prosper. Like, that excites me. Why would I ever be scared of something when he has plans for me to prosper? Like, why could I ever be scared? I don't know. Like, again, I know that thinking is difficult for most people, but why not? Like, why not?
No, I feel like when you decide to trust God and the words that he has for you, over time, your faith builds because you start to see how he really does come through in those moments that he said he was going to come through. Just because things aren't in a perfect way and you're not living the exact thing that you thought you were, it doesn't mean that he wasn't there for you.
Yeah.
And for example, we were talking about Moses. Just because God gave him that word, he never said it was going to be easy. He never said freeing the Egyptians, freeing the Israelites was going to be easy. But he made a way every single time. Even when Moses' back was against the wall in the water, he split the sea. And in the same way, he does that with us. And the more that we trust him, the more I feel like he reveals himself every single time. And the more confidence you're able to build on that. I don't know if you have anything to add, but
I was just thinking of the story of Moses freeing the Israelites. And I was thinking, like, God came to Moses and he gave him that mission. And like you said, there was no roadmap. There was just the final destination of go free the Israelites. I'll be with you. I will guide you. But he had no idea. And one of his first stops, God tried to kill him. I don't know if you remember that.
Which one?
After the burning bush, when God came to Moses and told him what he was meant to do, on his way to Egypt, he stopped somewhere and Moses didn't have his son circumcised. So God tried to kill Moses before he even got to Egypt. I don't know if you remember that in there.
I don't.
But
it sounds just about right.
Bro, I read that and I was like, hold up. I was like thinking I went to the wrong book of the Bible and I like was at like a completely wrong chapter. And I was doing research and essentially like it was the covenant with Abraham and God that said, like, you have to circumcise your children as a covenant to me. You know what I mean? That was one of like the stipulations to be blessed by God. And if you don't, then you'd be banished and not welcomed. And I just remember that because, like, if God was like, yeah, by the way, on your path, before you do this and before you step into this realm, I'm going to try and kill you. Like, I'm going to try and take you out. And his wife actually, while it was happening, circumcised their kid, and God was like, okay, like, I'll forgive you. You know what I mean? But like, he didn't give him that step of the way. And it just shows, like, Moses could have been like, oh, this is going to be easy. Like, God's with me. I'm going to go and be like, hey, Pharaoh, you got to let these people go. He's going to be like, yeah, okay. But like, he tried to get killed on the way. But at the end of the day, the final destination, everything that God said he was going to do for the Israelites happened. And Moses and his brother Aaron were able to help do that for them. And it's just kind of crazy that we're never going to know what God has planned for our lives. We pray to ask God for, hey, like, God, I would love to make more money. And then all of a sudden we get put in the toughest financial spot in our life. But God's humbling us for more money that's coming.
And teaching you how to handle what you have currently. So that you know how to manage things when you get put in that position of abundance.
Yeah. And that gets me to the next point is you have to be grateful for what God has given you to open your arms to what he's preparing you for. So many people want financial abundance and want to be in a better position or have a bigger house or have a nicer car. And then they sit there and they talk crap on the stuff that God already blessed them with.
Right.
People don't realize that they are living the prayers that they prayed years ago to God, but they're not grateful for it. But if you put yourself back in that place you were in, you'd be so happy. I was in Georgetown in a really low point, questioning happiness, questioning my life. And if I was where I'm at now, where I'm happy, and I was complaining, who am I to God? God's like, wait, you prayed for this happiness. You prayed for a nicer apartment or a better opportunity or more income. And now that I've given you that, now you're complaining? Why would I ever bless you with more until you learn? So people have to really get into the position where they can be confident and grateful in what God has given you now. Or why would you ever expect him to give you more? Like, think about it with your parents, right? If you ask your parents for something and they give it to you every single time, you're going to take it for granted. But if you ask your parents for something, they give it to you and you're not grateful and you're constantly whining, your parents aren't going to give it to you again. And then you're probably going to be upset at your parents.
Yeah.
And in reality, we have to be grateful for the little things that God gives us as well as the big things so that it can open our hearts to receiving more versus being closed off. It's like if someone's giving you $100 and they give you that bill and you have your hand and you grab it and close your hand, right? What if someone had $900 more behind their back and they were like, wait, why'd you close your hand? I had so much more money for you, and you closed yourself off to a bigger blessing. And that's also a thing with sending it to a different place or trying a new job. Or here's a big one is people not quitting their jobs that they hate, especially at a young age without kids.
For sure.
What is the point? What? Oh, I like the extra money that I have. Well, guess what? Are you going to die unhappy with what you did in your life? Like, what's the point of that? I'd rather be tight financially and struggling, but enjoying what I do than having so much money, but hating what I do every day. Like, why would I want to hate what takes up the bulk of my day? I'd rather do things that I love so that I can have a fulfilled life. I can learn more about myself. I can be happy with who I'm doing everything with and allow financially God to take care of me because he will provide whatever we need in life.
Right. And I'm so glad that we brought up David Goggins because one of my favorite things that he's ever said is more of so of how he views heaven. And for example, to put it into perspective, I think people will understand if I talk to you and say, Steve, you made it to heaven. Okay, just to make sure it's you. Okay, Steve, you're an ultra marathon runner, an Ironman. You are someone who is a philanthropist who's given back to hundreds of thousands of people, who's built homes for kids everywhere around the world, who's brought millions of people to Christ. And then you have to stop me and say, hey, whoa, that's not me. That's, you got me messed up. That sounds like a cool guy, but that's not me. And I tell you, well, this is who you could have been if you only decided to believe what God had for you all along. And that, to be honest with you, keeps me up a lot. And makes me feel like I really need to take my path more serious because God has what he has for us for sure. And it's there. No one can take it away. Just because someone, for example, someone gets to that position, it doesn't mean that you can't either. However, even with talking about the Israelites, just because that promise was set to Moses that he was going to make it to the promised land doesn't mean that things still had to work in a way where they had to trust God along the way. They still made it to the promised land, but a lot of people never saw it because they went in circles for years and years and years and years. And a lot of the people who were part of the group that made it out of Egypt never got to see the promised land because they never lived in obedience with God. And so everything that we have that God promises, it's there, but we have to actually move forward, and we have to make those decisions, take that leap of faith, or we're not going to get there.
It's cool you mentioned that, because that's exactly where I'm at in the Bible right now. I'm reading the chapters of Numbers where they're going in circles. They're going in circles and they're confused. And I just read the part, I wish I knew which one it was in Numbers, which chapter, because I read a bit every day. But it was literally saying, God said to Moses, like, those who originally were freed from Egypt will never see the promised land, because they constantly were questioning God's will, and they were questioning leaving Egypt in the first place, and they were doubting it, and they said they'd rather die in Egypt. Yeah. Exactly. And God's like, whoa, I took you out of slavery. Like, how do you forget that quickly of the blessings I have? And how are you going to ignore those blessings in terms of your optimism for what I actually have planned? So I'm going to make you go in circles for 40 years because you don't deserve the blessings that I have.
But the thing is, they chose to go in circles.
Yeah.
They, with their actions and their, like you said, their I don't know if it's ungratefulness or ingratitude. Did I just make a word up?
Lack of gratitude.
Yeah. With their ungratefulness, they willingly went around in circles.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by the promise was always there. Yeah. Always there. And you could have gone there if you were just living in obedience with God. And that's not just a wake-up call to the Israelites. That's a wake-up call to all of us.
Yeah.
Because God has those promises for us. But if we think that we can do this without him, you're in for a long waiting time.
Good luck, brother. Shoot ourselves in the foot constantly. Everything that we do, we shoot ourselves in the foot. We handicap ourselves. We limit ourselves. We lack in belief. We lack in discipline and obedience, and we lack in our faith. And there's just so many things that if we just flipped the switch and had that delusional optimism and believed in ourselves and believed in what we feel like the Spirit has put on us to do, wow, there'd be so many more blessings and so many more people who are actually achieving the things that they felt called to do in life. I feel like the Spirit, again, I feel like I've said this, not even just on the podcast, but over and over to people. If you hate what you're doing, listen to your spirit. Listen to what the Spirit puts on your mind to do, as long as it's a good thing. You know what I mean?
Because God has so much more for you.
Exactly. So why would you limit yourself like the Israelites did? They got caught up in the lack of belief and the lack of gratitude that they kept going in circles. When in reality, if you do the same thing over and over with no result and you keep doing it, that's literally the definition of insanity. You keep doing the same thing over and over. You go to work, you don't make enough money, you hate your job, yet you won't quit. If you say it like that, people are like, well, you kind of got a point, but I'm scared because if I quit without a plan, or if I want to move somewhere else, or I want to try something else, like what if it doesn't work out? And then you rationalize with yourself, and going back to even what we said with the cardio, you let that inner voice that lacks belief win. And that is where the outliers stand out. The people who have businesses and financial success and who are philanthropists and give back and are just happy, through line of happiness. It's because they didn't let those negative, self-deprecating thoughts win. They went with the punches. They took leaps of faith, and they thought, okay, worst comes to worst, this will happen. But again, imagine if it works. And that just excites me, not in terms of financial, not in terms of location-wise moving, just in terms of entire life for family and love, and Brayden being my future wife and all these things. It just excites me because not just me and her, not just you, not any of that. There's so many amazing things that are going to happen. And if we can put ourselves in that headspace constantly to look for the next thing and the excitement and to take the leap of faith and to not be scared of going for it, God's going to bless us and give us the things that we have always wanted. Like you said with philanthropy, like that's also another thing for my future that I want to do. I want to give back. I want to do homeless shelters and give food back. And I don't want to be one of those people who gets so excited with themselves with money and have a love of money and hold on and have millions and millions in the bank account, but won't give $20 to a homeless person on the corner. Like, that's just not cool. And that's something that I strive to do in life. And bro, I'm so glad you brought up the point with David Goggins, because that I think is also my favorite part, was if you got to heaven and God listed a million different things that you did and you were confused and you're like, I didn't do that. Like, no, I want to be that person. I want to be the person that God put me on this earth to be. I don't want to shoot myself in the foot because I'm scared to try something new and then live in this now all the time, wondering what if I went harder with my diet? What if I trained harder? What if I did more running? What if I tried going to a new place? What if I tried a new job? What if I tried a new job field? What if we tried the podcast? Which, by the way, this is not the last one. Just a little
What
hint.
if we prayed more? What if we believed more?
Exactly.
What if we took another leap of faith? And I think what people don't understand is that there are people currently living the dreams that you have who are less talented than you because they believe more than you.
Yep.
And that's unfortunately a reality that I live in, because I feel like I do great with my music and I have an amazing talent, a gift from God, but I haven't believed in myself more than some other people who may not be as talented, in my opinion, which it's my opinion, but they're a lot more successful because they believe, they constantly are posting, they're constantly doing these things. They're living my dream. And so that's a wake-up call to me, but it's a wake-up call to everyone, because just because you are this amazing gifted person, that doesn't mean nothing. If you don't take the leap of faith, if you don't take that first step and constantly believe and constantly, like we were saying, keep taking steps, God will never be able to make that path for you.
And talks like these get me excited because it makes me think of like all the amazing things and opportunities that God has planned for us. And it gets me giddy almost and excited to see what he has planned for us, because if God has these plans that I can't even imagine, and I know my imagination and what I believe, so I'm like, God has even more planned. God has so much, a perfect location to move to, a perfect opportunity, and just everything that's meant to be opportunities to bless other people and to do more and to shine light in others' lives. That gets me so excited because he knows so much more than me. And I feel like I've gotten into a good groove, so I can only imagine what he has planned for me. And that's kind of where I want to leave this podcast off on, is just being fully encompassed in taking the leap of faith with what if? What if this works? What if I try this new area? What if I move? What if I do that? And also, one thing that we can control, because people worry about things they can't control. One thing that we can control is our environment and the people we surround ourselves with, the conversations we have, and the area we listen to, or the area we live in, and the people we listen to. That is so important. Even going back to what you said with family, a kid can get raised the wrong way, not because of their parents, but because of their environment and who they're around. But it also could be their parents.
Right.
And their environment could be good, but their parents could be bad, or vice versa. And it's the same thing with us, regardless if we're a kid, a teenager, a young adult, and an adult. Our environment makes up the most important thing of us. Because of where we are, who we listen to, that will mold us into who we are being. So if you're around people who don't have what you want, who are constantly judging you and being judgmental, that's someone you shouldn't listen to. You want to surround yourself with like minds who are down to take the leap of faith, who are down to try something new, or if they don't even understand what you're doing, but they support you, that's the environment you want to be around. Stop listening to people because they're your parents or they're your elders. That's not how that works. Just because you don't listen to your parents and their opinions doesn't mean that you should disrespect them, but you should know that you have a dream and you have something that the Spirit put on your body, and you should never listen to someone else degrade you or bring you down from that and conform to what they think is right, because then you're living life for someone else and not for yourself.
And you just reminded me that in the Bible, if anything, whenever God gave a word to someone, even to Jesus himself, obviously, it's always the family members, bro. It's always the family members, the wife, the brother, the sister. With Job, it was his friends, the people who came in negatively and essentially try to take down the word that God had given those people. It's always those people. That's why I feel like it's ultimately, like you said, probably the most important thing to hang around people who are not only like-minded, but positive, because you can tell your dreams to someone who thinks like us, and we'll be like, hey, go for it. Believe. If you can figure it out, if you have a plan and if you work hard, you got it. You'll do it. But then you'll talk to anyone, you can bring them a plan and they'll be like, well, I don't know if this is going to work because of this. Well, I don't really think you should do that because you're safe right now and you have a good job and you have a good set of things that you're doing throughout the day. But your environment can literally cut off your wings before you even try to fly, man.
Yeah. It's living life with God or the devil. If you focus on the materialistic and the things every single day, you're not living in faith with God. You're living in your own understanding. And we can't even scratch the surface to what God has planned for us. So, man, I can't wait. I'm excited to see where we go from this, where we actually go with the podcast, and where location-wise we go when we try to send it to a new place. But I'm excited for what God has planned for us as brothers, for our future families on the podcast. We will not quit, I promise. This is podcast 7. We will be here for podcast 8. But we're going to wrap it up here. We appreciate you guys for listening, watching, viewing, and subscribing. Thank you guys so much for tuning in every single week. Let us know if you guys have any suggestions or things you would like for us to talk about on the podcast. We're always open to people asking questions and to having discussion. We can pretty much talk about whatever. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
We're not those who feel like we know it all.
We don't know it all. That's exactly
not even close.
You know.
So we're always open to learning from you guys and growing together and growing individually and coming to this podcast and just using it as an outlet to speak more. So, man, we're never stopping. I'm excited. I can't wait for what God has planned for us as well as for all of you guys listening. But that's the end of episode 7. Have an amazing, amazing rest of your week. We will see you guys every single Monday, 7 p.m. God bless you guys, and we outie.
Peace.
Peace.